So with that, thank you everybody for joining us today for another CTC webinar. Today's webinar is going to be more of just an update on some of the new features and enhancements that have come along that some of you may not be aware of. So with that, my name is Tony Crick. I'm a Civil Product Manager here at CTC Software. And if you have any questions as we go along, type them into the questions box there, and we'll try to get to them as we go. Otherwise, we will certainly hang around at the end to answer questions as well. So this webinar is just about some of the new things that we've had come out with our 23 versions, well, 24 versions in 23. We've done a lot of work here to improve our tools. A lot of it is from input from users like you, trying to make your workflows easier and more efficient. So we have two suites of tools. We have productivity tools and manager tools. So we have different parts of our CIM project suite of tools. We have different uses for them. Everything goes along with Civil 3D. We have no proprietary objects or anything like that, so you can freely share them with other Civil 3D users. Most of our stuff draws from styles that you've already created in Civil 3D. So we pull from those to enhance your workflows. So we've been working really hard in the past year, for sure, to get our updates out, as I mentioned before. All of our tools will work in the last 4 versions back to 2020. I just got a note here that my microphone might not be working the best. So as I said before, please bear with me. So it will work in Civil 3D back to version 2020. So as I said, we have a suite of productivity tools as well as manager tools. Here's our CIM project suite of tools. These are more intended for the everyday Civil 3D user, creating design and production drawings. As you can see there, we have different modules for different suites. So we have survey tools, pipe tools, grading tools, corridor tools, general tools, so that's our label Genie and Clash Seeker. We have our data wizard, that's for setting up tables and legends. And then we have a whole sheet production set, and that's our sheet generator. So what's new for these releases? Let's first talk about Auto Grader, and I'll show you a couple of these things. Not too much. This isn't going to be as much of a hands-on as typical. Just kind of want to make you aware of what's new. I'll show you how to find what is new as well on our website. So Auto Grader, some of the new things that we've added. We can now grade from parcel segments. So if you've created a lot development and you're created it using parcel segments, and now you want to grade it. In the past, we were unable to do that. Now we can do that. We can grade right from our parcels, so we don't have to create necessarily polylines and or feature lines separately. In addition, we can now have childless families. Before, every family had to have children to create feature lines. So now we made a childless family where you can just add break lines right to your surface. You don't have to go into your surface editor or anything like that. If you've got a polyline or a feature line that you want to turn into a break line, we can now add that right to the surface, and we have some control now of where they land to how you want them processed. A couple of these things I will show you coming up here. Another one of our new tools is grade from both ends. So that's similar to the insert feature high low point. If you've used that before, we can now set grades to certain elevation slopes to find the points that we want. Some of the things you might use them for, maybe crown in a parking lot, maybe swales or lot lines in the back or in the front or between them. And now we can do that too. We also added a new location for our surface settings, and they're now specific to the family type. And as I mentioned before, we added surface break line build order. We also added a last run column, so you know if you're up to date with your grading. When was it run last? Do you need to improve it, rerun it? Especially if you get it from somebody else who's been working on it, you can see if they're up to date. We also added a zoom to and highlight of our families. So we can do it at the family level or the feature level. So these, again, I will show you. So earthwork processor. What have we done with earthwork processor? We added an additional report column to the main form that reports raw cut fill numbers. So you can compare those directly in the spreadsheet form. You don't have to export them necessarily. We did some changing to the stripping depth to make it more accurate. We found that there were some discrepancies if you were using multiple stripping depths in the same set. So now what we did was we pulled that out, and if you want to do different stripping depths in different regions, you're going to have to create a new set. But we are working to improve that as well as we move along here. Hopefully that will help for some of you out there. And then Label Genie, one of our most popular tools, can save you a lot of time. Lots of saved clicks there trying to label things. And we keep trying to make it better. We added an option to delete labels when changing the filter selection. So you don't have to do a select similar to delete things anymore. You change your feature line, labeling, or whatever it is, your filters. Now you'll have the option if you want to delete previously created labels. And we recently added more feature line label functionality as well. In Data Wizard, we now can make a table of legend of anything that's in paper space. So a lot of you might be using paper space to put multi-liters in there. Maybe you're doing some other stuff, I don't know. Now we can make a legend out of just that stuff too. So it will recognize paper space entities only in paper space. And Pipe Designer. So when we were doing pipe designs before, and you sometimes had to create your design for your profiles, your slopes, you would have to, and you wanted to change from upstream to downstream, you would have to go back and reselect. Now we made it a little easier. You don't have to reselect. There's a reverse button, which I will show you here in a minute. And then corridor mapper, if you've seen any of our other webinars, we can now control these sub-assembly layers and what helps organize and to set up targets. And then Clash Seeker, that's our newest tool. We now can clash with pressure pipe networks. So before we could only use the gravity networks, but recent Autodesk changes to their API have allowed us to use our pressure pipes now. Then the manager tools. So the manager suite is set up more for CAD managers or maybe the power users that are using templates, that are setting up templates, that type of thing. So as you can see from the slide there, we have 3 categories of tools. The general is what really helps with our templates. To straighten those up with template tracker, it's tracks our layers and where they're used and such. And then style manager helps us find our styles if we've got things that are needing changes, we don't know where they are, or what they're being used for. We've got style manager there, and then layer boss is another tool that we have where we can find layers, what's on the layers, we can change the layers, we can use an export those to a spreadsheet. If you're keeping track of your templates that way and you're layering, you might be using it externally, you might have a CAD manager create them there, and you can just import those with the create edit. So some pretty cool stuff there. We work with objects as well. And then our survey template manager. That helps with our managing our templates. We can keep all our description keys and our figure databases in an external format, which we can edit externally and then bring those in when things change and get updated. So it really just helps with your efficiency in the survey end. So what's new with these tools? Template tracker, as I said before, it's part of our template manager tools. Sometimes when we're cleaning up our templates, we're dealing with some old files. And they might have missing content. If they're being used from a legacy version, maybe Lambda desktop development, maybe it's been kicking around that long. And some of the styles maybe didn't come over, so they can have blank or empty fields there. We added a tool, don't really have that to show you, but we can now find those blank fields and fix those both in using template tracker and to point you to the tool space where we can find those as well. And we can change our default layers and text styles that are reading from Civil 3D commands without digging into the tool space. Oh, I just mentioned that. So Style Manager, what's new with Style Manager? We now have the ability to leave blank property fields. So if you wanted to find something and replace it with a blank, we can now do that with an empty field, just like you can in Excel. So with that, let's jump into showing you a couple of these things. Real quick here. Oh, before I go along here, I want to show you this. Let me drag this back over. So here's our website. If you're wondering how do we find out about our what's new, So we just come right here, we come right to our civil end right here, for our civil users. And we have our release notes right here. So you can click on your release notes, and we get these updated every time there's a new version that comes out. So here's some of the suite-wide updates. So if I come here and I want to know what's new, for instance, we talked a lot about auto-grade. We click on auto-grader right there, and it shows us what our improvements are for the last few versions. So 24.1, you can see we added a lot of things. 24.0, we had a bug fix and a new feature. This is that grade from both ends I talked about. 24.1, bunch of enhancements. So you get the idea. Here's where you can find these things. Let's click one more there, Data Wizard. So 24.2, we added this right here. So let's jump into a drawing here. Just kind of show you a couple of these things. Open up our tools. Try it out. Okay. So AutoGrader, we talked a lot about AutoGrader. Let's start with that one, and it's our parcel segment. We can create feature lines now. So these are our parcels. And when I stop, hello. Okay, what we saw was a parcel. So let me just unload this extra. Here, maybe that's slowing us down a little bit. Why are you doing this to me? My keyboard isn't working. Okay, do this one. Must be in the middle of a command, another drawing. Please bear with me. There we go. Okay, good stuff. Let me just unload that in the back. Okay. So as I said, we can now grade crystals. So let me switch to the project suite, and let's open up AutoGrader. So with AutoGrader, I went ahead and I created a new grading family. So let's open that up. You've seen our videos, or you've used our tools, you know how to create these things here. So that's our profile of our feature line in a nutshell. I'm not going to get too deep into that. But we said we can do parcel lines. So let me go grab the feature line for our parent. Okay, what's happening now? Why am I stuck? Okay, let's try it again. All right, so here's the filter to create or to find our parent line. Again, you know, hopefully how to do that using our different filter. In our common filter here, we can select by layers, descriptions. I can type in everything. I can use a lot of different filtering here to get at my feature lines. So you see it selected one and now to grade existing. So we can only use this for perpendicular and grade existing to find our feature lines. So if I just come along here and I select these feature lines, again, I could do this by layer, but I only have the one parent line along this outside part of the right of way. Now what happens to my AutoCAD? Sometimes it doesn't work like you would expect. Let's try that again. I do not know what happened to the rest of my drawing back there. That's got to be an AutoCAD thing. I'm going to save and close here and close. See if we can get our drawing back. Live demos. Okay, I won't zoom in this time. And it won't even let me pan. Okay, let me do it again. Not sure which ones I got selected, so I'll have to reselect them. We'll see if our zoom to will work here. When I pull that off, I'm just hitting the search class. So that's showing us we've got the parent selected. Let me open the family back up. So now it's got 19 for some reason. I had 18 before. I'm going to clear them because I don't know what I got. Let's do this again. Hopefully it will let me. Sometimes when doing these webinars, unfortunately, I think it's a graphics thing that causes things just to go slow. So let me just say okay right there. So we got 28 of them. And we talked about where these settings, surface settings are now, so we put them in here. Like, let me save and close this. So we still have our surface creation right here. And it got hidden. So we can still create our surface right here, so we don't have to go over into tool space and make a surface. Was part of the surface before, so we can create it there ahead of time to populate our surface right there. And now all the settings for it are here, so they'll be family based right here, so we can say where we want our break lines to go in our surface. We can pick our surface right here. Once we have it created, and our type of break lines, how we want them to be. And here's what we talked about. How do we want them? What order? So now we can either do it before or after. So if you've got a bunch of break lines that have already been created, you might want to do it after the non-auto grader ones. Otherwise, they will take precedence at the top of the list right there. So then what do we want to add to our surface? Different selections for this. Check that off. We'll see what happens with that off. And then some supplementing factors. And here's our boundary creation right here. Do we want a boundary for our surface or not? Our layer control right there. So with that, then let me save and close this. And it's going to go to the finished ground surface. As you saw, I selected it in the previous panel. Let me slide this over here just a smidge here. Hopefully you can still see right here. So this is the only finished ground there was before. So there was an alignment created right here with a surface. And now we want to grade these lots off of the alignment. This was pulled right from the corridor feature line right here from the other drawing, the XREF drawing in there. Now this parcel drawing is all by itself, and now we can create the finished surface from there. If I hit run right here, we'll get a status update right here of what's happening. Again, it won't run this slowly in your drawing. Has a lot to do with these webinars. And it is creating the surface. It's doing a lot of work there. So we get this right here. We want to continue. It's going to convert these parcel lines to feature lines. So if you wanted to use those in a grading situation, be aware that you're going to lose your parcels. So you might want to make a copy of it or keep it in a different drawing, use one for grading right here. I happen to have them both in here. So that's what this warning is. So I say okay to that, and you can see it's doing its thing. Right here, and it should have created these out here on the surface. What I was expecting. Let me go back to here. Maybe it's that selection I had. Oops. Let me try it again. Oh, I don't have time for that. Let me move on. But you get the idea. So it can grade from parcels. We see that they got changed to feature lines in the back there. Let's get to this other grade from both ends thing, kind of a cool tool, tricky tool. We talked about you could use it in any one number of situations if you want to, for instance, put a crown in this parking lot right here. Maybe you wanted everything from this drive lane, these two drive lanes, to drain this way and or that way for some catch basins, and you wanted to put a crown on there. Say you wanted it up 2%, down 2% from this feature line, which is the center crown for the drive. So let's just show you how that works. Once it opens. Okay, and I went ahead and I made a, I was afraid I might get this a little long, so I went ahead and made a template for it. I'm just going to load that. I did run one here. And I'm going to just load this one. So if you were doing this as a consistent thing, you would have, potentially you could have this as a template that you saved out there. You can just load it every time. So then it's just simply a matter of selecting your parent feature lines and your child. Again, this can only be used when doing perpendiculars. And we do have to have an elevation, a known elevation of one of our lines in order for it to work. So if we're starting at a known point, a known elevation, we come to here and we set our settings. It can only either go up or down. And then I'm just going to exaggerate this one so you can see what happens in the template here. So you see that pushed it up quite a bit down here. And if I wanted to have 2%, as we talked about, simply hit in the background. So you can only do positive or negative. So if I wanted to go down 25%, I clicked here, we're going to get a warning right here. If one of these is not right, just telling us that it's not going to function. So I have them both set the same. So you can see it went down. So that's what it's trying to do here. Let me change these back. 2 and 2. And let me grab my polylines. These are polylines that I drew through the center, and I attached them to this crown feature line out here. So they have an elevation on one end. And if this will behave, I will pick them. So I've got my two objects right there. It's ready to go. I'm going to save and close so I can pull this out to the side so we can see. Let's crunch that up. And I'm going to hit run right here. We get this warning again. We let you bail out. And it should have done it. If I was going to create a surface out of it, I would grab it here. And close that. And let's look at those feature lines I created. I pull up my elevation editor right here, and we can see once that pops up, right there. So we see what it did, like 2%, 2%, down 2%. You get the idea. So that's what that one does. What else do we want to show you? Oh, some earthwork processor. Let me open that up real quick. And I'll just show you where the selections are for the other tools here. So earthwork processor, some of the things we did, we added form for cut and fill in the main form. We changed how the stripping depth goes. We also, at some point, created a last run. I'll show you that too. Thought we did. Okay, we didn't do the last run to this one. Oh, AutoCAD. So here's where we put this right here. We just put a cut fill before we get to the net. So we did that, and again, we changed the stripping. Do I have any? Might not be able to add any sets here, but the stripping has changed right here now. I want it all to be half a foot. Then I have to do one family. I want everything to be 8 inches. I would just make another family and add the regions to that. It's maybe not quite as convenient as it was in the past, but we get better numbers this way. So I'm going to close that and label Genie. Show you a couple quick things in there. Show you where that delete now is. In fact, I think we can just label. Hopefully I should be able to put some labels on these right here. We're still here. We're just waiting. As you saw, it's not the tools. It's AutoCAD, because I couldn't even pull up my hammer here. So we added this right here if you want to delete, and you will get a warning before proceeding as well. So if you do want to delete them, you're going to get a box or a warning box right there. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over that. If you saw one of our latest Label Genie webinars that I did a couple weeks ago, we did use that and showed how that worked. And we did add some feature line anchor objects here now. So we have more control over our feature lines or whichever one of our label types we are using that we can use feature lines on. Let me see if I can do that. I'm afraid to, but let's grab those feature lines. Let me see if I have that. I do have that format there, so we can do it. Let me just put some, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label the elevations of that feature line, those feature lines we just put on. I'm just going to show you real quick. So if I did like that, let me change that. I'm going to do this in one step. So if I put that here, I just pick that one, and I want to do my vertices, all my vertices. I want to do PIs, begin, end. We have all these selections here. I believe it's ready to go. Try to add. So unless I had midpoints put on there too. So I labeled that feature line with our spots. So I don't have to have a surface active to label these feature line elevations. But what if I wanted to add just to these and get rid of those? That's what our delete is for. Due to the sluggishness of AutoCAD here, I think I'm going to run out of time before I get to pop open some of these other tools and show you, but I'll pop them open to show you what the tool looks like in case you haven't seen our tools before. Okay, so I come in here and I change what I wanted to label. I cleared that, but I want to add this guy. I'll say okay right here. I'm going to leave this checked right. But I should take those off and add here. So if we get the update right here, it's going to add 5 and delete 5. I'm going to say no here because I'm going to pull those off of the midpoints right here. I don't want that. We don't need that one necessarily for this. So let's do the, going to add 3 and delete the 5. Yes. I'd say yes. That's what it's going to do. So it took those off and I didn't have. So this comes in handy if you're doing maybe a whole development where you're changing some of the selections for putting labels on. You can delete those now without having to do a select select. So that's label Genie. Let's get into Data Wizard. That's this drawing, hopefully. So I got a bunch of trees that I just dumped in here. Not sure what that one was. I ran the Autodesk beta not too long ago, and maybe I didn't get something cleaned up. Let me go back to Data Wizard. Whoops, I need to change to layout. So before we couldn't find things that were just in paper space. Wow. Well, you can see that there's been a table created here in this one. And now it changes. And back. That should not take that long to change to a layout tab. Like I said, these webinars sometimes slow things down a bit. So with this one, I went ahead and I just dumped in some trees into paper space. I know this isn't what you would do before, but we couldn't find these before. And like I said, too, if you're putting multi-leader labels or something like that in there, I just did this to make sure it was grabbing the trees. So we can pull those from there. I'm just going to move on. So you think this is going too slow? Let's get, I want to get to Pipe Designer, show you that. As we attempt to change the drawings here. Thanks for bearing with me out there as we fight through AutoCAD today. So Pipe Designer, I have a pipe network right here that we're going to attempt to grab to show you that button. So I'm just going to grab a short run. Should have done that lateral. Now we lost it again. Oh, at least we got it to open up. So here's what I was talking about right here. So if we had gotten more, you know, they would populate right here. And if we wanted to go upstream or downstream, this obviously isn't going to do anything. You can see it changed some of the stuff on how it works. We don't have to reselect it. What else? Corridor mapper, just the subassemblies. Layers from subassemblies right here. This is what we changed, or enhanced, I should say, made it a little more powerful than it was before. And then Clash Seeker 2, we can do pressure pipes in here. I'm going to kill that right there. To open, get into the manager suite real quick before we leave. I guess not quick, nothing was quick today. So template tracker right here for tracking all of our objects and layers, what they are attached to. And it works with our layer boss too. So we call on template tracker, layer boss 2, we can kick it back when we're trying to assign layers. We'll get a warning in layer boss telling us where to find those things. I don't know why I can't get that up. There it was. Where did you go? One more time. We'll get this thing opened up. Try to close it right here real quick. Reopen it. There it is. There it was. I don't know why it's hiding back there. Tricks to get it back. So a template tracker, like I said, we can find what is on certain layers. If I click here, we see all the layers or all the things that are being put on this layer. We have text styles, dimension styles, blocks. Any one of these we can track to help with our template management. I'm just going to close that real quick. I keep saying real quick, but it's not really quick. But I see we're running out of time. I'm just going to open Style Manager here too, just to get that open, walk through that hopefully a little bit. Well, completely locked up. So anyway, here's our Style Manager, just to show you what it does. All these styles live in our tool space. All this does is find out what styles are there. So our hierarchy here, this is everything in that group. These are the design checks. Label styles for our alignments are all here, and we can make a number of changes to those without having to go into them in the tool space one by one. So with that, I'm going to try not to continue here. Switch back and end things. So again, then we have our suite of CTC CIM tools, at Civil Information Management tools. And we have our CIM project suite, which I showed you 24.3 version, and also our CIM management suite is also 24.3. So with that, thank you for joining us today.